Saturday, May 25th, 2013. I'm conducting an interview on my grandmother, Sandy Kendall, about the Milwaukee race riots back in the 60s. Grandma, how old were you back when these race riots were taking place?
I was approximately 17, just got out of high school.
And where were you living at the time? Were you living in Milwaukee?
I was living almost just on the edge of the core of what was going on. I lived on 19th and Highland and 22nd and Highland.
Now, Milwaukee is a very segregated city, as it still is today. Now, as we were talking before, there is a dividing line between North and South, which kind of separated black and white community. What was that place called again?
It was the 16th Street Viaduct, 27th Street, and 35th. That divided basically the north side from the south side.
All right. Now, so basically, I know these riots are taking place. Obviously, the civil rights movement was going on in this time. But what really caused these riots to take place was the Equal Opportunity Housing Bill.
Right.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, back then, housing, you could basically discriminate on housing, on who you wanted to rent or sell a home to.
Okay.
And the blacks in the area wanted the equal rights of the whites, and so they started the uproar and to get their rights in force. They tried passing a bill and it kept being turned down, and so they thought, well, what better way to get our point across is to start a riot.
Now, you mentioned earlier about what was the event that really kicked things off. It was something about a party?
There was some kind of a party that was going on down off of 3rd Street, 3rd and Meineke, North Avenue, right in that area.
Which side of the line was that? Which side of like the dividing area was that?
That was the north side.
Okay.
And that was predominantly black.
Okay.
And they beat up an individual, and one thing led to another, and it just caused one fight after another in the community.
Now, where were these riots taking place? Where did it start, and what's kind of like the physical movement of these riots?
Well, the majority of them were over on the north side, and right, as I say, in the core of the area. The worst hit parts were down off of around 3rd Street and stuff, but little segments started popping up after that, where people started, they would set homes on fire.
Oh, wow.
And when police and fire trucks, the firemen would come to put the fires out, they would shoot at them. And so, I mean, they were fearful of their life, and so stuff like that was happening, and it was popping up pretty much on the north side of the city.
All right. Now, so obviously there was a lot of violence going on. Was there any kind of law enforcement, like what kind of stuff was going on to try and keep the peace?
Well, eventually, because of all the problems, they're within a 24-hour period, they ended up calling in the National Guard.
Wow.
And the National Guard took their stance on corners.
Okay.
And then from that, it developed into a curfew where you couldn't go out of your home only within a certain time period.
Okay.
And then you had to stay in. And that was scary because you never knew if something was going to happen. Somebody was going to come to your home, especially in the area we lived in.
And what area was that? Did you live?
It was on 19th and Highland,
Okay.
22nd and Highland.
Okay.
So, and then it started moving a little bit more towards the south end.
Mm-hmm.
Just before you get to the 27th Street Bridge, you would see the Coast Guard or the National Guard on the corners with their weapons drawn, looking for anybody that was possibly going to loot the stores and stuff.
Wow.
So, they were looking for looters. They were standing by.
Now, how did this affect your daily life during these moments? Like, obviously there was a curfew, so you couldn't be out all the time, but, I mean, was there times where you couldn't leave your house at all?
There were times where you couldn't. It was like a 2-day period where you couldn't leave your home at all.
Wow.
And then after that, they started lifting it a little bit more. They started lifting the curfew to where you would have from like 7 at night till the next morning, and then you could go to your business, your place of work, or go do what you needed to do, doctor appointments or whatever. But you were limited for a few days too. So you're basically confined to your home.
Yeah, that must have sucked.
It was.
Now, about the walk across the viaduct, what was that like?
Well, there was an individual that started all of the stuff that was for equal housing.
Okay.
And his name was Father Groppe, James Groppe, and he put together a walk for the blacks to go across the 16th Street Viaduct and walk down to Kosciuszko Park.
Okay.
Over on Lincoln Avenue. And they were doing a rally over there. And as they're getting to the end of the 16th Street Viaduct, there were a lot of white people that were resistant to what they wanted to do.
Okay.
And so they were ready to stand up for their feelings on it, as well as the blacks wanting to put their feelings in. So the National Guard was there heavily.
Yeah.
And, to make sure that there were no confrontations. There had been people arrested.
How many would you say were arrested during this time?
During the whole time, there was 1,500 to 1,700 people.
Wow.
During the 9 or 10 days that it went on.
And did you witness any of these arrests, or did you witness these violent acts? Like, obviously you were younger, so you were in your home because of the curfew, but what did you witness that was most shocking or just most real to you?
Well, what I wanted to witness, I wasn't able to because the cops stopped us from doing it.
So that would stop you.
So I really didn't. I seen no, luckily, I seen no people getting beat up.
Yeah.
The blacks were, if they seen white people, they were attacking them. So that's why a lot of it was with the curfew and everything.
Exactly, for your safety.
Right, exactly, for your own safety, and they were saying, stay in, and then that's why they imposed the curfew.
All right.
Right down there was where there was...
I can see, I got it.
Got it?
So right down there was, can you repeat that?
There was a bank that was broken into, and down in this area there were fires.
Wow.
They had an episode up the street. This is my high school.
Oh, wow.
And I'll show you where my grandma lived in that apartment. That's where she babysat your dad. Right there.
That's so cool. Now, speaking of your school, what was going on with school during this time? Was it during vacation, or were you just not going to school because
I was out of school. It was July.
Okay.
And so I was out of school.
Okay.
This house right here with the windows here. That's where one of the houses where my mom lived.
Oh, wow.
And I lived in there for a while.
Okay.
With her.
Now, is this where you lived during the time?
I live partly, sometimes here, and sometimes on 19th Street. We'll go down that way. But right now, this is predominantly black.
Yeah, still, even 40 years later.
Yeah, 69 or 67.
Okay.
Well, no, we won't go this way. My church was down that street.
So this whole neighborhood was on curfew?
Oh yeah, the whole city of Milwaukee.
Whole city of Milwaukee, wow.
Yeah. This was a main drag, this street here. It's called 20th Street. And it was a main drag, a main street with a lot of traffic and stuff.
Okay.
And so this was a main drag that a lot of people went driving down, including myself.
Yeah.
This is where I would go by myself before, a couple weeks before all of this stuff happened.
Yeah.
And rumors were going that there was going to be rioting, but nobody really believed it was going to happen until it actually did.
Wow. Was it, I mean, obviously you just said no one believed it, but was it a shock? Or was it kind of...
No, it wasn't really a shock because
Okay.
people were kind of anticipating.
Okay.
19th Street is right here, used to be right here. And I lived right down this street.
Wow. Just weird to think it happens in just a couple minutes, little while from
Yeah.
where we lived.
Down to the north here was a main area where a lot of it happened. 13th and Valete, 12th and Valete. There was a lot of stuff. There were things that happened down the street on the left here where there were people that were breaking into businesses and looting them,
Yeah.
starting fires.
Did anything happen near any of the homes where you were?
No, not.
Okay.
See, my home was right down here, where that home is,
Oh, wow.
right by the corner there. So we're going.
No loitering or prowling.
Yeah, I used to walk past this house.
Wow.
So this is my stomping grounds, and this is where a lot of things happened.
Yeah.
And it wasn't nice.
Now, after the fact, how did things start settling down?
Once they had the rioting
Okay.
done, and they passed a bill the following year, April of the following year,
Uh-huh.
to allow the open housing
Okay.
so that the blacks would not be discriminated
Yeah.
against. So they ended up getting their way.
Now, were things still rough? Like, was there still violence? When did the National Guard start leaving?
That I don't remember. I know that they were around for a couple weeks yet,
Okay.
but at maybe 2 weeks or something.
Okay.
That they started walking down.
Right here?
Yep.
While we're driving across?
Yep. This is the
Wow.
16th Street Viaduct that
You can see the stadium from here.
I want to say at least 1,000 people with guardsmen
Okay.
along the route were walking. At the other end, the whites were waiting.
What happened when they got to the other end?
Well, because of the National Guard being there, there were a few problems, but it wasn't bad.
Okay.
But they were waiting, to stop them from
Yeah.
going on that side of town.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I've really learned a lot, and it was really interesting.
Thank you for asking me about it. I appreciate it, and give you a little bit of history of what went on when I was your age.
Yeah.
Basically 17 years old.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
Wow.
really. So,
All right. Well, thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you.